Here is a common hobby experience. You see a stack of 1975 Topps baseball cards for the first time, and you either love them or you hate them. There just isn't much room for waffling with these multicolored beauties. Guess which camp I'm in? Is there? I mean, they're like chiclets in a corrugated box, or a three-ring binder, or a top loader, or, well, you get the picture. But no matter which side of the fence you land on with the 1975 top set, it's hard to deny that they have been a hobby divider for decades. And that tends to happen when an issue is loaded with rookie cards of future Hall of Famers and causes whispers whenever it shows up. And then that buzz that the mini version of the set always brings about, and you have a recipe for some highly desired cardboard. But which 1975 Topps baseball cards are the most valuable? To answer that question, I consulted the PSA Sports Market Report price guide and compiled the following list. For this exercise, I'm focusing on cards that grade in PSA 8, near mint, because these cards will just be about as sharp as you could want. But they are not so rare that you run into condition-based price anomalies, like a five-figure price tag for a PSA 10 Hank Aaron at the end of the set. And these listings are specifically for the standard size 1975s, though the minis should follow the same general pattern, albeit at a slight premium. If you're interested in pricing for that more diminutive issue, check out the SMR listing. Now, with those formalities out of the way, let's dig into the most valuable 1975 Topps baseball cards. By the time the hobby exploded in the early to mid 1980s, George Brett was already a baseball legend. Hitting .390, winning an American League MVP award, and helping your team to a slew of division titles and a World Series will do that to a fella. And the hemorrhoid thing, and the pine tar thing. So it wasn't surprising that the Brett rookie card climbed to the top of the 1975's Topps heap early on, and it's not surprising it's still there all these years later. Those 3,000 hits and a Hall of Fame plaque in the interim helped this rookie card's cause. And so did the fact that it's a single rookie card when so many of the big scores from the 1970s were multiplayer rookies. It also doesn't hurt that Brent and Robin Yount spent their careers in lockstep in so many ways, increasing visibility for both rookies. As of this writing, a PSA 8 Brett rookie card is a 200 plus item. It takes a legend of magnificent proportions to split up baseball's most celebrated twins of the 1970s and 1980s, and that's just what we have here. Anytime you find Nolan Ryan in a baseball card set, you can bet dollars to donuts that that card will be among the most valuable in that set. The 1975 Topps issue of the Ryan Express is no exception, checking in at around $200. Longtime collectors might remember the days when Ryan was an enigma, a guy who could throw faster than a jet plane and who could make Hugh Hefner strike out, but who wasn't always regarded as a polished pitcher. Polished or not, Ryan ended up pitching basically forever and put the all-time records for strikeouts and no-hitters, among other marks, out of the reach of mere mortals. Pretty much everything I said about Brett goes for Yount too, except that Robin won 2 MVP awards. Of course, he also never put up the gaudy batting averages that his Kansas City Royals counterpart did, and Yount's Milwaukee Brewers were not perennial October participants. Still, more than 3,000 hits and a place in Cooperstown leaves Yount's rookie card in the upper echelons of the 1975 Topps set. In 1974, Hank Aaron broke one of baseball's most hallowed records when he slammed his 715th home run to move past Babe Ruth. Topps did most of the Aaron celebrating that same year by issuing a series of special cards to kick off the 1974 set, including a retrospective of Hammer's previous Topps cards. So in 1975, the Aaron parade was subdued. Sure, card number 1 was a highlights deal that marked the new Homer record, but we didn't see Henry again until card number 660. Now, the last card in a Topps set was a big deal sometimes, see Ted Williams' 1954, but the Atlanta Braves had traded Aaron to the Milwaukee Brewers in the 1974-75 offseason. And rather than just show Aaron in the Braves uniform that he raised to new levels over the course of 2 decades, they instead chose a close-up profile shot and airbrushed in the Brewers' colors. Ugh. Still, it's the last Topps card of a top 5 player of all time, and for that it rightfully sits above $100. You've already heard most of this card's story, but let me just add that this is the last Topps card to show Hank Aaron in an unaltered Atlanta Braves uniform, and it's a number 1, and it commemorates one of the game's greatest ever moments. So, is it any surprise this is also a 100-plus card? Who was the best catcher of the 1970s? Probably Johnny Bench, right? But while BJ was busy helping the Cincinnati Reds to a dynasty, a youngster was sprouting up behind the plate of the Montreal Expos. And by the time his New York Mets won the 1986 World Series, Gary Carter had firmly established himself as the catcher of the 1980s. His 1975 Topps rookie card rose through the ranks with him and now sits comfortably north of $50 in PSA 8. It's a fitting position for a Hall of Fame receiver who was taken from us much too soon. In the late 1970s, there was little doubt in anyone's mind that the Boston Red Sox slugger Jim Rice was a Hall of Famer in the making. His 1978 season was as amazing a display of overall batting excellence as most fans had ever seen, and he seemed a lock to eventually reach 500 home runs. Rice had built enough of a legend that his cards climbed in value through the hobby boom, even though his on-field performance began to wane. In the years since his retirement, it seems that Rice's stats would leave him short of Cooperstown, though. Even so, his cards remained popular with collectors. When he made a late push to gain Hall of Fame election in 2009, his 1975 rookie card was once again a hot hobby property. Today, it's a $50 item in PSA 8. Ever notice the names that come up when you engage in one of those conversations? You know, if you had to win one game and could just pick one pitcher to get the job done, who would it be? The usual suspects include Sandy Koufax, Jack Morris, Madison Bumgarner, and maybe more than anyone else, Bob Gibson. The St. Louis Cardinals mound intimidator for 17 seasons, Gibson was as fierce a competitor as you'd ever want to encounter. His overall body of work included 251 victories, a 2.91 ERA, 3,117 strikeouts, 2 Cy Young Awards, and a 1968 National League MVP award in the year of the pitcher. And, that Hall of Fame plaque. Above it all, though, stands Gibson's reputation as a dude who would do anything to win the big game, especially in the World Series. In fact, 3 fall classics, 1964, 1967, 1968, saw Gibson pick up 7 wins against 2 losses, with a 1.89 ERA and 92 strikeouts in 81 innings. The 1975 Topps card was the last of his storied career, and its place on this list is fitting hobby tribute to an all-time great. One of Gibson's teammates who made those great 1960 Cardinals teams go, go, go was speedster Lou Brock, the centerpiece of one of history's most lopsided trades when the Chicago Cubs traded him to the Cards in June of 1964. Brock almost immediately became a sensation in St. Louis thanks to his blend of power and speed, especially speed. He stole 63 bases in 1965, then led the league for the first time in 1966 with 74. Fast forward to 1974, and Brock was the acknowledged king of speedsters in the major leagues. To articulate that point, he went ahead and swiped 118 bases that summer to break Maury Will's single-season record. Those high-flying exploits caught the fancy of fans, so much so that this 1974 highlights card sells for $40+ in PSA 8 even today. Love him or hate him, there's no denying that Pete Rose made things happen on the baseball diamond. And as we would find out later, he also made things happen off the diamond, which is what's landed him in his current predicament. Will baseball's all-time hit king ever make it to the Hall of Fame? Chances are he will, but Pete may not join Ty Cobb and all the other hit mavens until he has served his full lifetime ban. In the meantime, Rose remains a polarizing figure and a hobby staple whose cards are always among the most valuable in whatever set they grace. That goes for the 1975 Topps, where Pete in PSA 8 is a $30+ buy. Pretty much every Reggie Jackson baseball card is a special affair by virtue of its featuring Mr. October. But the 1975 Topps Reggie card has something else going for it. It's the last Topps card to picture Jackson as a member of the Oakland A's while he was still playing for the Oakland A's until his late career return to the Bay. Because while his 1976 issue also shows Reggie with the A's, he actually played for the Baltimore Orioles that summer. Then, of course, he was off to the New York Yankees for 1977, a move that began to cement his status as a baseball god. Back to 1975 Topps. What is this piece of cardboard history worth today? Generally $35 or more in PSA 8. By modern statistical standards, Mike Schmidt probably should have won the National League MVP award in 1974 on the strength of his 9+ WAR and league-leading 36 home runs. But back then, power hitters with low batting averages and tons of strikeouts just didn't take home the hardware, especially if they played on third-place teams. Don't cry for Michael Jack, though, because he got his due with 3 MVPs and general acknowledgement as maybe the best third baseman ever once his Phillies turned the corner into contention and championships. Along the way, this 1975 card that memorializes his big 1974 and every other hunk of Schmidt cardboard became hot hobby commodities. Today, this very 1970s issue generally brings $30 or more in PSA 8 condition. Like this video? Then like this video and subscribe to our channel, waxpackgods.com.